Good evening from the News Radio 1120 and 93.7 FM KPNW studios. I'm Bill London. I do the wake-up call here, 6 a.m. to 9, Monday through Friday, streaming worldwide and to Montana at kpnw.com. This look at the news brought to you by Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental, where now they use lasers to clean your teeth. And it's done by robots from Andromeda. It's true. They're pretty cool. All right, here's a look at some of the stories we're following. So there was this whole tolling thing that was supposed to happen, and we've talked about it, in Portland on I-5 and I-205, which, of course, the Oregon Department of Transportation did their little listening sessions, and then they did what they said they were going to do and caught hell from all quarters. Well, now Governor Kotek said Monday that she is going to put a halt to plans on tolling Portland area freeways. And what she cited was the uncertainty about the costs of planned freeway projects and the revenue tolling that it actually is going to bring in. Now, in a letter to the Oregon Transportation Commission, and they're the ones that set state transportation policy, Kotek said she believed it was time to end work on the so-called Regional Mobility Pricing Project. The state transportation department's plan to impose per-mile tolls on I-5 and I-205 from Wilsonville to Portland's northern border. So Kotek wrote, quote, "The state's path toward implementing tolling is uncertain at best." She says after years of work, the challenges of implementing the Regional Mobility Pricing Plan have grown larger than the anticipated benefits. So the Oregon Department of Transportation wanted to toll two freeways as a way to reduce congestion and also generate funding for new freeway projects, actually to pad their budgets because they're constantly running at a deficit. The plan has been met with pretty much fierce opposition on both sides, including residents in communities along I-205 that would see a lot of increased traffic from drivers that are going to be going through their towns and through their neighborhoods trying to avoid tolls, and even environmental advocates who feel like the proposed tolling costs would fund freeway widening projects. Well, you can't have that because they don't want you driving. And that means more people are going to be driving, so they hate it too. Transportation Department Director Chris Strickler said the state's transportation system is vital to Oregon's overall health. And that tolling would have been a critical tool to address those needs. Now, if you recall, last year, the governor ordered a pause on toll collections until 2026, so the state transportation department could present a finance plan and a more thorough report on the impact that it would have on folks that, well, live in those communities, which could have been paying upwards of $18 to $19 a day just to get to home and back or take their kids to school and home. In her Monday letter to the commission, she said the findings make clear that tolling is not viable. Kotek said her decision would not affect plans to toll a replacement interstate bridge, and that she wanted to continue working on that project with Washington officials. So that's for the Columbia River Crossing project, which may or may not happen. So the governor has said no. Really? Oregon Governor Tina Kotek declared the plans that she was scrapping the tolling, but the governor isn't speaking for the Democrats in the Oregon legislature. Enter Democrat from Forest Grove, Suzanne McLean, a co-chair of the legislature's Joint Transportation Committee. She says the governor's letter does not disrupt what we're doing at the legislature and what we plan to get completed. In other words, screw you. McLean previously stated that tolling was not, quote, not just a funding device, but as a congestion pricing. And congestion pricing means a lot of things. We want to change behavior. And there's some behaviors we want to change, meaning forcing people out of their vehicles and, into, I guess, buses. Oregon Secretary of State LaVon Griffin-Ballard earlier this month announced her office's audits schedule for the coming year, and it's kind of interesting. One of those audits actually has to do, kinda, with LaMotta Pot Chain and its owners who are under federal investigation. Oh, LaMotta shows up again. Remember, former Secretary of State Shemia Fagan actually resigned over her connections with LaMotta after she received a high-paying job with them as a consultant while she was still Secretary of State and tried to keep it under wraps until, well, her cover was blown by the Willamette Week in Portland. Now, there's another politician who also had connections with LaMotta while she was with the Bureau of Labor and Industries. And we're talking about current Congresswoman Val Hoyle. Back in August of 2022, then Commissioner Val Hoyle of the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries helped ram through a $500,000 apprenticeship grant to a nonprofit that was created by LaMotta. Now, Willamette Week reported last year that despite the nonprofit having zero history in nonprofit work, records show that Hoyle interrupted the agency's standard process to ensure that the nonprofit called Endeavor would get the grant, even over the concerns of the Bureau's apprenticeship committee and the problems that they had with the proposal. And she was able to ram it through in a week in a process that normally takes months. LaMotta's founders were prominent campaign donors to Val Hoyle, who, of course, now is a member of Congress. Remember, they're the ones that were delivering campaign donations and actual $100 bills in brown paper bags. So the first audit on the new Secretary of State's schedule is an examination of the Bureau of Labor and Industries, which will include, quote, oversight of its apprenticeship program, as well as the agency's governance model. Now, current BOLI Commissioner Christina Stevenson, whose administration in spring of last year clawed back the unspent remainder of the Endeavor grant from LaMotta, actually requested the review of her own agency's program because of what Val Hoyle did. Auditors also requested that the apprenticeship program be audited. And something that's interesting to note here, and whether it comes up in the audit will be anybody's guess. Remember, the Bureau of Labor and Industries have been requesting for well over a year that Val Hoyle turn over her electronic devices because she was conducting BOLI business on them, and, well, they're sort of public records, and Hoyle basically stonewalled it for over a year, and then her lawyer went through all the text messages on her phones, and the lawyer gave the things that the lawyer thought were germane, as opposed to letting the folks from BOLI actually go through them, which is what they wanted. Yeah, okay, so you get the idea. Oregon Representative Suzanne Bonamici, she's Oregon Congressional District 1, introduced the No Robot Bosses Act. It targets AI-based discrimination and hiring tools used for automated job application systems. Now, Bonamici says, quote, we must address the potential for bias in its algorithms. She claims that systematic biases in AI tools have limited the opportunities for people from underserved and marginalized backgrounds. The legislation would also require employers to train those who use the AI systems and disclose how they're used. And employers also can't rely exclusively on those systems in their decision-making processes. Now, while Bonamici may have something here, it's interesting to note that Bonamici has been in Congress since 2012. And this is the very first piece of proposed legislation that she submitted in the entire 12 years that she's been in Congress. That's your Congresswoman working for you. Oregon's regulated cannabis industry has been suffering from oversaturation, but a new bill passed by the Oregon legislature during the short session is expected to protect established marijuana businesses. Now, originally, Oregon in its, foresight, didn't have any limits on the number of cannabis licenses, and the industry has been grappling with oversupply, lack of demand, and record low wholesale and retail prices. So the Oregon State Senate passed House Bill 4121 that would cap the number of cannabis licenses based on Oregon's population, like the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission does with alcohol, where there's a limited number of liquor stores depending on the population of a given area. Why didn't they do that to begin with? Well, because, again, the foresight of Oregon's leadership, they figured, hey, marijuana is going to be legal and we're going to be shipping pot all over the country, which hasn't happened because that would require Capitol Hill to allow them to do that. And Capitol Hill's not allowing that and probably won't for a long time. So the number of female gun owners is on the rise. You go, ladies. And an Oregon State University study claims the reason is due to a change in advertising by gun manufacturers. Now, Oregon State University analyzed ads in firearms populations, and in particular, and if you read the report, they specifically mention they went through and collected hundreds of back issues of Guns and Ammo magazine. That's what they were using. And they discovered something that they called a new approach in gun advertising that started in 2013, where marketing featured women gun owners as confident, empowered, and feminine. Then they say in 2016, the ads changed to focus more on competence, depicting armed women as responsible, capable, and well-trained. Now, according to the latest stats, in 2022, about 22% of women in the United States owned at least one gun, which is about a 5% increase since 2007. Now, what the study seems to ignore are other studies. Now, they're just blaming it on gun advertising. However, a study done by the National Shooting Sports Foundation surveyed firearm retailers and buyers about the trends. The May 2020 survey results estimated that 40% of sales that year were to first-time gun owners, and that 40% of those people, first-time gun buyers, were actually women. The NSF survey also revealed the primary reason that women were buying firearms. Do you think it would be personal protection because of rising crime? Why, yes, that was the reason. It had nothing to do with advertising. And something interesting to note, and you would think that maybe these intelligent people for a university that are doing this in-depth study, again, they focused almost primarily on Guns and Ammo magazine. Would you like to know what the demographic is for Guns and Ammo magazine? Its readership, according to Guns and Ammo, and they're the ones that would know what their readership is because they have to go out and sell that particular demographic to advertisers. 97% of their readership is male. So how exactly is it that all of a sudden all these females that don't even read Guns and Ammo magazine are seeing the ads in Guns and Ammo magazine? Just curious. Oh, and by the way, the most common firearm that women buy, typically, semi-automatic pistols. Yeah, semi-automatic pistols that have magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. And that was actually, they bought those 2-to-1 over the second place most purchased firearm by women, shotguns. Oh, and we'll leave you with this. So, gas-powered leaf blowers will be a thing of the past in Portland. The Portland City Council Wednesday unanimously approved a ban on gas leaf blowers that will eliminate those machines year-round within the next 4 years. They say we'll do it gradually. Multnomah County, which co-wrote the ban ordinance, pledged to help immigrant-run landscaping businesses with the expense of transitioning to electric and battery-powered blowers. The phase-out begins in January of 2026, and for the first 2 years, gas leaf blowers will be prohibited 9 months out of the year between January and September, and will allow their use during the wet leaf season from October to December. The year-round ban starts on January 1st of 2028. Portland's leaders say that gas-powered leaf blowers pose a serious health risk to residents and in particular to immigrant landscape workers who operate them and are exposed all day to their pollutants and noise. Once the ban goes into effect, enforcement is going to happen through a complaint-based system. A first violation is a warning. A subsequent violation is a fine of $250, then $500, then $1,000, and each day an owner's in violation will be deemed a separate violation. But city and county leaders assure us that they want the transition to go forward without resorting to fines. The county also plans to launch a multilingual education campaign on the ban starting this July. Okay, I'd like to do one of those multilingual ads. Los gringos tantos tienen otra regla estúpida para ti. This look at the news brought to you by Dr. Michael Bratland, where they have robots from the Andromeda galaxy clean your teeth with lasers. All right, it's time now for Rick to roll out the reel.